They were all in the same storm, same waves, same winds. But while some drowned shouting, blaming, praying, others stood on the wreckage and built a throne. That's the part we rarely talk about. In a world full of chaos and injustice, some collapse under the weight, and others rise. What separates them isn't fate. It's not even fairness. It's how they think. You see, the victim wakes up believing life is something that happens to them. The leader wakes up already in motion. The victim checks the forecast. The leader prepares for battle, whether the sun is out or the sky is falling apart. And this isn't about who has more money or more muscle. Real power doesn't live in the obvious places. It doesn't wear a crown. It doesn't shout. Power lives in perception. The leader understands that truth faster than anyone else, that the world is not ruled by reality, but by the illusion of it. The victim believes that being right is enough, that the truth will rise and justice will prevail. But that's not how the world works. Not really, not yet. Because the world doesn't reward truth. It rewards strength. It rewards whoever looks like they belong at the top. It rewards whoever plays the part convincingly enough. The victim cries, hoping someone will listen, hoping someone will come, hoping someone will care. But the leader doesn't cry. He crafts. He sculpts perception like a blade. Every word, every silence, every expression is deliberate. The world sees what he wants them to see. Ask yourself honestly, when people look at you, do they see someone who bends fate or someone who's bent by it? They don't see your pain. They only see how you carry it. They don't care about your loss, only whether you wear it like armor or like a wound. The mistake most people make is thinking visibility is the same as influence. Being heard doesn't mean you're being followed. Being seen doesn't mean you're being trusted. The leader knows this. He knows that image comes before loyalty, that confidence, even faked, commands more obedience than sincerity ever could. A lion with a limp gets hunted. A king who doubts gets replaced. So how does a leader control perception? Not through lies, through precision. He chooses what to show, not all of it, just enough. He speaks less and says more. He leaves space for mystery. He knows people will fill in the blanks with their own fears, their own insecurities. That mystery is power. The victim spills their emotions everywhere, hoping someone will hold them. The leader controls every drop. Even silence becomes a message, especially silence. That's when people lean in. Look at history. How many emperors were mad or cruel, but still followed, still obeyed because they appeared invincible? Now look at the so-called good ones, toppled not because they lacked virtue, but because they looked unsure. You don't win loyalty with truth. You win it with power. And power begins with perception. It is the sheath that hides the sword, the shadow that moves faster than the man. It's not about being right. It's about seeming inevitable. Even your enemies must believe you're dangerous, especially your enemies. Let them fear you're quiet. Let them guess what you're planning. Let them misjudge you, because while they sleep, you're already moving. A leader never says, "This is unfair." He says, "This is the game." And then he learns the rules and bends them without being caught. There's no glory in helplessness, only extinction. You can bleed behind closed doors, scream if you must. But when you walk out, you walk tall. You walk steady, not because you feel strong, but because others need to believe that you are. Perception once shattered is nearly impossible to rebuild. That's why a leader never panics in public, never blames, never begs. Even when everything's falling apart, he smiles like he planned it that way. The victim. He's still waiting for someone to notice the collapse, but the leader's already drawing the blueprint for the rebuild. There's a difference between applause and obedience. The crowd cheers the victim but follows the leader. The victim is admired for surviving. The leader is obeyed for deciding. Only one of them walks away when the next storm hits. So ask yourself honestly, are you sculpting the way others see you, Or are you just reacting to how they already do? The victim waits for signs, waits for someone to give the green light. The leader creates momentum from nothing. He doesn't care if it's raining or if the odds are against him. He doesn't wait for the world to be kind. He doesn't wait for clarity. He doesn't wait for certainty. He moves. Power flows to those who initiate, not those who respond. If you're waiting to see what happens, you've already lost. You're already behind. Reaction is the domain of the powerless. The victim is always a step behind, always adjusting, always explaining, always waiting for someone else to go first. But the leader, he's already on the next move. While the victim is wondering what to do, the leader is rewriting the script, because in a world of chaos, he knows the one who strikes first writes the rules. The moment you react, you reveal yourself, your fears, your soft spots, your boundaries, your tells. And the world is full of wolves trained to smell that blood. A true leader studies the field like a strategist. He anticipates betrayal. He predicts slander. He moves before the dagger is even lifted. The victim is waiting for someone to criticize them and collapses into insecurity when it happens. The leader makes them irrelevant before they even speak. Because control doesn't belong to the smartest, or the kindest, or the most deserving. Control belongs to those who act first, who don't wait for the world to grant them space. They take it. Quietly, strategically, powerfully. It's not enough to be good, or even great. Not in a world that rewards dominance over virtue. If you're always reacting, you're dancing to a rhythm you didn't compose. And eventually that tune will drown out your voice. The leader doesn't just walk differently, he thinks differently. He doesn't ask, what should I do if this happens? He's already moved beyond that. His question is, what can I do before it happens? That's the mindset shift. That's the separation. By the time a victim responds, the game has already been decided. Reaction is survival. But the leader doesn't aim to survive. He aims to shape the field. The victim prays for mercy. The leader maps out leverage. You'll hear people say, but I'm emotional, as if that excuses chaos, as if their heart deserves the steering wheel. But a leader feels everything deeply and still chooses not to be ruled by it. He doesn't cut emotion out of his life. He cages it, studies it, redirects it. That's the difference. The victim says I was overwhelmed, so I quit. The leader says I was enraged, so I sharpened my weapons. Same emotions, different throne. You think a general doesn't tremble before war. You think a ruler doesn't ache when he's betrayed by blood. He does. But he never lets that pain sit on the throne. He never lets fear hold the map. Emotion is fire, raw and powerful. It can build a kingdom or burn it down, and the leader chooses which one it becomes. The victim is a house without locks. Every emotion walks in, makes demands, rearranges the furniture. One day it's grief at the wheel, the next envy, and they wonder why nothing stays stable. But the leader posts a guard at the gates of the mind. He lets emotion enter, but not command. He listens, but never kneels. He uses emotion like poison, not in himself, but in others. Anger isn't evil, but uncontrolled, it becomes a bomb with no target. The strategist sharpens it, channels it into momentum. A leader doesn't lash out. He collects, stores, files it under to be dealt with effectively. The victim hits when provoked. The leader hits when it matters. That's not weakness. That's timing. That's control. So ask yourself, when someone angers you, do they now control you? When someone hurts you, do they now hold the pen that writes your next move? Because if your emotions decide your behavior, then they've taken the crown right off your head. The true leader learns to feel the fire rising and chooses what to do with it. Let it warm the room or let it stay hidden in the lantern. Not every feeling deserves an audience. But leadership is not just about mastering your own emotions. It's about using the emotions of others. This is where influence is born. This is where real power lives. People aren't moved by logic. Not truly. They're moved by shame, by hope, by pride, by fear. Speak to these things, and you don't need facts. You don't need force. You guide people like a current, subtle, natural, relentless. Watch the world closely, they crave validation. So the leader gives just enough to keep them moving. They fear rejection, so he withholds approval as a leash. They hunger for purpose, and so he gives them one. A mission, a banner, a reason to believe they're chosen. Whether the mission is true or not is irrelevant. What matters is movement. And when enemies rise puffed with ego and false confidence, the leader doesn't argue. He flatters. He lets them climb higher, into their own downfall. Emotion becomes a weapon, carefully placed. Never loud, always deliberate. He never panics. He never raises his voice. His silence becomes a storm. His calm a question that echoes in every room. Because while the victim is still drowning in his own moods, the leader is already steering the tides of nations. You can't lead people if you don't understand what moves them, and you can't understand them if you're still trapped inside your own noise. This is where the victim fails. They confuse honesty with exposure. They confuse authenticity with volatility. But the leader knows your emotions are not sacred. They are tools, weapons, and sometimes liabilities. So if you must cry, do it in solitude. If you must scream, do it in the gym. In public, wear calm like armor. Because remember, perception is still the battlefield. And if they see you as unstable, no one, not friend, not enemy, will trust your decisions. If you want to be followed, then stop being easy to read. Stop being moved by every gust of wind inside your chest. Learn to feel deeply and reveal nothing unless you choose it. Because when the storm comes, and it always comes, most people curl up and pray it ends quickly. The victim screams at the clouds, waiting for someone to notice their pain. But the leader, he captures that storm, bottles it, and uses it as fuel. That's the secret. Misfortune is not the curse. It's the material. It's the steel waiting to be forged. Everyone suffers. Everyone bleeds. Everyone loses. What matters is how you frame it, what you do with it. The victim sees misfortune as punishment. The leader sees it as raw power. A ruined reputation, turn it into mystique. A failed business, turn it into resilience. A betrayal, make it a lesson, and then a story, and then leverage. People follow those who've survived, but only if that survival looks intentional. If you collapse and stay there, they pity you. But if you rise with strategy, they follow you. A leader doesn't hide from failure. He reframes it. He takes the worst chapters of his story and edits them until they serve him. Not with lies, but with intention. The victim waits for someone to come along and make the pain mean something. The leader decides what it means himself. That's the difference between being defined and being the author. You were fired, then say you outgrew the cage. You were abandoned, say you shed what was too small for your destiny. You were broken, then say you were refined. The leader doesn't deny the loss, he just doesn't let it speak first. Because every loss, if you carry it right, makes you dangerous. It makes you unpredictable. And nothing terrifies weak people more than someone who no longer fears being wounded. The person who has buried their pride and still walks forward. That person cannot be manipulated. They've been through the fire and came out sharpened. That's what real power looks like. Not noise, but quiet endurance. You see it in politics, in business, in war. The leaders who rise aren't the protected ones. They're the ones who know how to profit from pressure. They've turned setbacks into strategy. They've learned to breathe in the flames. And they remember what the fire taught them. They don't run from it anymore. They store it like fuel. So when others tremble at the first sign of collapse, the leader doesn't flinch. He's seen worse. He's walked through darker rooms. He knows this terrain. And more than that, he knows how to build on top of it. You weren't born to beg. You weren't born to be pitied. You weren't even born to be understood. You were born to bend the story, to bend perception, to bend reality. The victim prays for peace. The leader trains for war silently daily in places no one else sees. You want to lead, then you have to shed softness. Not kindness softness. You have to let go of the fantasy that fairness will save you, or that the world will hand you anything just because you're good. Power doesn't reward the good, it rewards the prepared, the precise, the focused. And the battlefield, it isn't always made of blood and concrete. Sometimes it's a boardroom. Sometimes it's a hallway. Sometimes it's your own mind. But it's always there. And the leader knows he's not here to react to it. He's here to command it. So how do you begin? You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting to be chosen. You stop responding to life like it's your superior. Because it's not. When perception becomes your weapon, when timing becomes your shield, when emotion becomes your servant, not your master, then you become dangerous. That's when the rules stop applying to you. That's when silence speaks louder than shouting. That's when your moves don't just make noise, they make history. It's not about being feared. It's about being unreadable. It's about being unpredictable. You become the variable no one calculated for. Because the moment you step out of victimhood, the moment you stop needing to be rescued, you become the storm. You become the thing people adjust themselves for. You don't need a crown to lead. You don't need applause. What you need is vision. What you need is clarity. What you need is control. Control of your image, control of your timing, control of your reactions. You cannot control the world, but you can control how the world sees you. That is leadership. Not charm, not noise, not popularity, but power that doesn't flinch, power that whispers, "You'll regret underestimating me." Let others chase fairness. Let others demand attention. You stay quiet. You move sharply. And when you arrive, you do so like thunder no one expected. Because the leader isn't interested in being liked. He's interested in being followed. And the truth is, people don't follow the loudest. They follow the one who seems inevitable. What you must understand now is this. The victim lives in the realm of feeling of fairness, of hope, that someday someone will come and set things right. But the leader doesn't wait for someday. He doesn't wait for fate to choose him. He doesn't wait for a moment to feel perfect. He moves because power responds to movement. Power doesn't wait. It flows to the one who acts. While others are still standing in the ashes asking, "Why me?" The leader's already pulling bricks from the ruin building, something sharper, something leaner, something undeniable. And that's what separates the survivor from the strategist. The victim hopes to be rescued. The leader becomes the rescue. The victim demands to be understood. The leader turns silence into signal. You will not always be seen. You will not always be applauded. But if you lead yourself, if you hold the line, when everything begs you to break, people will notice. Maybe not with cheers, but with a glance, a pause, a silence that says, "There's something different about you." You've seen people like this before, the ones who walk into a room and shift the temperature without saying a word. That presence, it's not magic, it's not charisma, it's discipline. It's the result of thousands of invisible choices, not to lash out, not to explain, not to react, not to beg for validation. That kind of presence is forged in solitude, in restraint, in studying the game long before you ever sit at the table. That's why a leader doesn't panic when his name is smeared. He doesn't explain when they twist the story. He doesn't chase after reputation like a man chasing his own shadow. He lets time reveal him, and when it does, he's already built something no one can take. Because the most dangerous man is not the one who is angry. It's the one who is prepared. Prepared to be underestimated, prepared to walk alone, prepared to act whilst others stall, prepared to bend when bending is strategy, and to harden when steel is needed. That's what makes a leader different. Not just the way he thinks, but the way he refuses to be ruled by what everyone else thinks. He doesn't need the world to clap. He needs the world to move. And when you learn to command perception, not through manipulation, but through consistency, precision, silence, and power, you no longer live at the mercy of noise. You become the one writing the script. You become the one shifting the weather. And eventually, the one they either follow or fear. Now look at your life. Look at the stories you've been telling yourself. Who have you been in those stories? The one explaining, or the one executing, the one waiting, or the one already moving? Because at every moment you're shaping an image whether you mean to or not. So ask yourself truly, are you leading the narrative? Or are you just a character in someone else's? Are you sculpting how they see you? Or are you constantly reacting to the way they already do? The victim is reactive, emotional, predictable. The leader is patient, calculated, unreadable. And in a world that rewards certainty over truth, you can't afford to be soft. You can't afford to be seen too clearly. Let them guess, let them wonder. Let your results speak while your enemies sleep. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to stop waiting. You don't need approval. You just need momentum. Because the crown is never handed to the polite. It's seized by those who decide with or without permission that they are already powerful. Not tomorrow, not when it feels easier, but now, right here, as you are,